The conference room smelled like old leather and expensive cologne. I sat in a chair that probably cost more than my first car, watching my daughter's face glow with something I can only describe as hunger. 3 months. That's how long my wife had been gone. 90 days since I held her hand and watched her take her last breath. And here we were, gathered around a mahogany table to divide up her life like a pie at a church supper. Leonard Ashworth sat at the head of the table, his reading glasses perched on his nose. He'd been Catherine's attorney for 25 years, knew her better than most. He had this look on his face, calm, patient, like he knew something the rest of us didn't. Brooke sat across from me. My daughter, my only child. She wore a black dress that cost more than some people's monthly rent. Her husband Anthony sat beside her, his hand resting on her knee like he owned her. Maybe he did. I stopped understanding my daughter years ago. She hadn't cried at the funeral. I noticed that. Everyone noticed that. She gave a eulogy full of pretty words about her mother's legacy, her mother's success, her mother's empire. She didn't mention love. Not once. Leonard cleared his throat and began reading. The first few pages were what you'd expect. Catherine left money to her favorite charities, art programs for underprivileged kids, cancer research. The gallery employees would receive bonuses. Her college roommate got a painting they'd always admired. Brooke shifted in her seat. I could feel her impatience from across the table. She didn't care about charities or paintings. She was waiting for the number, the big one. Then Leonard read a section that made Brooke sit up straight. To my husband, Gerald Harrison, for his years of devotion and partnership, I leave my eternal gratitude and love. However, he shall receive no direct inheritance from the liquid assets of my estate. I watched Brooke's face transform. It was like watching the sun come out after a storm. Her eyes lit up, her lips curled into a smile she couldn't hide. She turned to me, looked me right in the eyes. "You'll get nothing, Dad." She said it slow, savoring each word like candy. Anthony squeezed her knee. He was smiling too. They looked at me like I was something stuck to the bottom of their shoe, like I was finally getting what I deserved. I didn't say anything, just sat there with my hands folded in my lap, same way I'd been sitting for the past half hour. Here's what my daughter didn't know. I'd been waiting for this moment, not because I wanted money. I never cared about Catherine's fortune. I fell in love with a struggling art teacher who wore paint-stained jeans and laughed at my terrible jokes. I would have been happy with her in a one-bedroom apartment for the rest of my life. No, I was waiting because Catherine had told me to wait. 3 weeks before she died, she grabbed my hand with what little strength she had left. She looked at me with those green eyes and said, "Trust me, Gerald. When the will is read, don't say a word. Just wait." So I waited. Brooke was still smirking at me. That smirk, I'd seen it 1,000 times over the years. When she told her friends I was the gardener, when she forgot to invite me to her wedding rehearsal dinner, when she suggested I skip her charity galas because I wouldn't fit in. That smirk was a knife, and she'd been cutting me with it for over a decade. Leonard set down the first page. He picked up the second. "There's more," he said. His voice was steady, but I caught something in his eyes. "Another page." Brooke rolled her eyes. "Fine. Read it." Anthony checked his watch like he had somewhere better to be. They were already planning how to spend the money. I could see it in their faces. The vacation homes, the cars, the freedom to never work another day in their lives. Leonard adjusted his glasses. He began to read. I don't know how to describe what happened to my daughter's face. It was like watching a mask crack and fall away. The color drained from her cheeks. Her smirk vanished. Her mouth opened slightly, but no words came out. She went white, completely white, like she'd seen death itself. Anthony's hand froze on her knee. His smile disappeared. He leaned forward, staring at Leonard like the attorney had just spoken in a foreign language. "What?" Brooke whispered. "That can't." Leonard kept reading. His voice never wavered. I sat there, in my expensive chair, my hands still folded in my lap. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. That's not who I am. But I finally understood what my wife had been planning. And for the first time since she died, I felt something other than grief. I felt hope. I need to go back to the beginning, back to when everything was simple, back to when I was just a kid from the wrong side of town who got lucky enough to meet an angel. I was 25 years old, working construction 6 days a week. My hands were rough. My boots were always dusty. I lived in a studio apartment with a hot plate and a mattress on the floor. But I was happy. I had a job. I had my health. I didn't need much else. My buddy Frank convinced me to take a night class at the community center. Painting, of all things. He said it would help me meet women. I told him he was crazy. What was a guy like me going to do in an art class? I couldn't draw a straight line with a ruler. But I went. And that's where I saw her. Catherine was standing at the front of the room, setting up easels. She had paint on her fingers and a smudge of blue on her cheek. Her hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail. She wore old jeans and a sweater with a hole in the sleeve. She was the most beautiful woman I'd ever seen. I was terrible at painting, absolutely hopeless. My trees looked like broccoli. My skies looked like bruises. But I kept coming back every Tuesday night. Catherine would walk around the room, helping students with their work. When she got to me, she'd tilt her head and smile. "You're not here for the art, are you?" she asked me one night. I felt my face go red. "No, ma'am, I guess I'm not." She laughed. It was the kind of laugh that made you want to hear it again and again for the rest of your life. We got coffee after class, then dinner the next week, then walks in the park, then everything else. Catherine came from a regular family just like me. Her father worked at a factory. Her mother was a seamstress. She got a scholarship to art school and graduated with a degree she couldn't use. Teaching night classes barely paid her rent. But she had this fire in her, this belief that she was meant for something bigger. I believed it too. I believed in her more than I believed in anything. I proposed after 8 months. I saved every extra penny from my paychecks to buy a ring. It was small. The diamond was barely a speck. But when I got down on one knee in her tiny apartment, she cried like I'd given her the moon. We got married at the courthouse. 12 guests. Her parents, my sister Diane, a few friends. We had cake and punch in the community center where we met. It was perfect. For the first 10 years, we struggled. We rented a small house with a leaky roof. I worked double shifts. Catherine taught classes and sold paintings at street fairs for $20 each. We ate a lot of rice and beans. But we had each other. We were a team. Then everything changed. Catherine's aunt passed away and left her a small art gallery downtown. The place was failing. Dusty paintings nobody wanted to buy. Catherine thought about selling it. I told her not to. "You know art," I said. "You know what's good. Give it a year. See what happens." She gave it a year. She worked 18-hour days. She found new artists. She hosted events. She charmed collectors and critics. She had an eye that nobody else had. She could look at a painting and know if it would be worth $10 or $10,000. The gallery started making money. Then it started making real money. Catherine opened a second location, then a third. She started investing in artists early, buying their work before anyone else saw their potential. Every investment paid off. It was like she could see the future. By the time Brooke was born, we were millionaires. By the time Brooke was 10, we had more money than I could comprehend. We moved into a big house with a pool and a garden. Catherine hired staff. She bought fancy cars and designer clothes. I was happy for her, proud of her. She deserved every bit of her success. But something happened to our daughter. Brooke grew up surrounded by wealth, private schools, expensive vacations, everything she ever wanted handed to her on a silver platter. She started to see the world differently. She started to see me differently. I still wore my work boots, still came home with dust on my clothes. I didn't know which fork to use at fancy dinners. I didn't know how to talk to her rich friends' parents. One day, I heard her on the phone with a friend. She was maybe 15. "My dad?" she said. "Oh, He's basically just the help. She laughed. That laugh broke something inside me that never healed right. Catherine tried to fix it. She really did. She sat Brooke down and explained how our family worked. How I was the one who encouraged her to keep the gallery. How I worked double shifts for years so she could chase her dream. How I sacrificed promotions and opportunities because I believed in her more than I believed in myself. Brooke nodded along, said all the right things. I understand, Mom. I'm sorry, Mom. But nothing changed. She still looked at me like I was furniture. Still forgot to tell me about her school plays until the night before. Still introduced me to her friends with this tight little smile, like she was embarrassed I existed. I told myself it was a phase. Teenagers are cruel. She'd grow out of it. She didn't grow out of it. At 18, Brooke went off to a fancy university that cost more per year than I'd made in a decade at my old job. She called her mother every Sunday. She called me on my birthday. Sometimes, at 22, she graduated and came home. She had no plans to work. Why would she? There was plenty of money. She spent her days shopping and lunching with friends and planning parties. At 25, she met Anthony Mercer at a charity gala. Old money family. Nice suits. Big smile. He looked at Brooke like she was a winning lottery ticket. I didn't trust him from the start. They got engaged after 6 months. The wedding cost more than most people's houses. 300 guests. Ice sculptures. A 12-piece orchestra. I paid for all of it. Wrote the checks without complaint. Because that's what fathers do. At the reception, Brooke gave a toast. She thanked her mother for being her inspiration. She thanked Anthony for being her soulmate. She thanked the wedding planner for the beautiful flowers. She didn't mention me. I sat at the head table with a glass of champagne I didn't drink, watching my daughter dance with her new husband. Catherine squeezed my hand under the table. I see it, she whispered. I see what she's become. I'm going to fix it. I didn't know what she meant. I didn't ask. 3 years later, Catherine got sick. It started with a cough that wouldn't go away. Then fatigue. Then a doctor's visit that changed everything. The diagnosis was pancreatic cancer. Stage 3. The doctors used words like aggressive and advanced and treatment options. They gave her 2 years, maybe less. I quit my job the same day. I'd gone back to work a few years earlier, consulting for a construction company. Couldn't stand sitting around the big house with nothing to do. But the moment I heard that diagnosis, nothing else mattered. I became Catherine's caregiver, full-time. I drove her to every appointment, sat with her through every chemotherapy session, held her hair back when she got sick, rubbed her feet when they ached, slept in a chair next to her bed so I could be there if she needed anything in the night. For 18 months, I never left her side. Brooke visited once a month, sometimes less. She'd sweep in wearing expensive clothes and strong perfume. She'd sit with her mother for an hour or two, scrolling through her phone half the time. She'd ask how Catherine was feeling, but her eyes were always somewhere else. Has she updated her will? I heard her ask Anthony once when they thought I wasn't listening. We should make sure everything is in order. Her mother was dying, and she was worried about the will. I wanted to scream. I wanted to grab her by the shoulders and shake her and ask what happened to my little girl, the one who used to climb into my lap and beg me to read her stories, the one who made me crayon drawings of our family and signed them, "I love you, Daddy," with backward letters. That little girl was gone. I didn't know who this woman was. One night, about 3 weeks before the end, Catherine grabbed my hand. She was weak by then, thin and pale, but her eyes were still sharp, still full of that fire I fell in love with 30 years ago. I know what Brooke has become, she said. I've known for years, and I've been planning something. I started to speak, but she squeezed my hand. Don't say anything, just trust me. When the will is read, you sit there and you wait. Don't react. Don't defend yourself. Just wait. I'm going to teach our daughter the lesson I should have taught her long ago. I didn't understand, but I made the promise. Catherine died on a Tuesday morning in April. The sun was coming through the window. Birds were singing outside. I was holding her hand when she took her last breath. Brooke arrived 2 hours later. "Traffic," she said. That was her excuse. Traffic. Now you understand why I was sitting in that leather chair without saying a word. Why I didn't react when Brooke turned to me with that smirk. Why I just waited. Catherine had asked me to trust her. So I did. Leonard Ashworth turned to the second page of the will. He cleared his throat and began reading in that calm, steady voice of his. I, Catherine Harrison, being of sound mind, wish to address certain matters that have come to my attention during the final months of my life. Brooke shifted in her seat. Anthony leaned forward. During my illness, Leonard continued, I was informed by members of my medical and legal team that my daughter, Brooke Harrison Mercer, and her husband, Anthony Mercer, made multiple attempts to obtain power of attorney over my estate. The room went silent. I mean, completely silent. Like all the air had been sucked out. Brooke's mouth opened. That's not, we were just trying to help. Leonard held up a hand. Please, let me finish. He kept reading. These attempts were made without my knowledge or consent. The intention, as documented in emails and recorded phone calls, was to gain control of my assets before my death and to ensure that my husband, Gerald Harrison, would be excluded from any inheritance. I felt something twist in my chest. I knew Brooke had been distant. I knew she was cold. But this? Trying to cut me out before Catherine was even gone? Anthony's face had gone red. He was gripping the armrest of his chair like he wanted to rip it off. Furthermore, Leonard read, I have kept records of my daughter's behavior toward her father over the past decade. Text messages, voicemails, emails, statements made to friends and family. He reached into a folder and pulled out a stack of papers. He slid them across the table toward Brooke. These are printed copies. There are more in the official file. Brooke looked down at the papers like they were covered in something foul. I could see the top page from where I sat. It was a screenshot of a text message. I didn't read it. I didn't need to. I could tell from Brooke's face that it was bad. Mom kept these? Brooke whispered. She was spying on me? She was documenting, Leonard said. There's a difference. He returned to the will. Now, regarding the distribution of my estate, valued at approximately $185 million, Brooke looked up. This was the moment she'd been waiting for. Even now, even with everything that had just been revealed, I could see the hunger in her eyes. I hereby place the entirety of my liquid assets, properties, and investments into a trust. Brooke nodded. That was expected. Rich people always use trusts. The sole trustee of this trust shall be my husband, Gerald Harrison. Brooke blinked. What? Gerald shall have complete authority over all distributions from the trust. He shall determine when, how, and if any funds are released to beneficiaries. No. Brooke shook her head. No, that's not right. Read it again. Leonard didn't read it again. He kept going. My daughter, Brooke Harrison Mercer, shall be eligible to receive a monthly allowance from the trust in the amount of $2,000. $2,000? Anthony was on his feet now. That's nothing. That's insulting. Sit down, Mr. Mercer. Anthony didn't sit down, but he stopped talking. This allowance, Leonard continued, is contingent upon Brooke meeting the following conditions. Condition 1. Brooke must obtain and maintain regular employment for a minimum of 5 consecutive years. This employment must not be with any company owned by or affiliated with the family trust. Brooke made a sound like she'd been punched. Condition 2. Brooke must write and publish a letter of apology to her father, acknowledging her treatment of him and expressing genuine remorse. This letter must be approved by the trustee. Approved by him? Brooke pointed at me. He gets to approve my apology? Leonard ignored her. Condition 3. Brooke must attend family therapy sessions with her father for a minimum of 2 years, with sessions occurring at least twice per month. He set down the paper. If Brooke fails to meet any of these conditions, or if she refuses to attempt them, her allowance will be revoked. The trust assets will then be donated in full to charitable organizations selected by the trustee. Brooke was shaking now, actually trembling. She can't do this, she said. This isn't legal. We'll challenge it. We'll take it to court. Leonard folded his hands on the table. Mrs. Mercer, your mother anticipated that response. This trust was structured by some of the best estate attorneys in the country. It is ironclad. You are welcome to challenge it, but I can tell you now that you will lose, and the legal fees will be substantial. He reached into the folder one more time. There is one more item. A letter from your mother, addressed directly to you. He held out an envelope. Brooke stared at it like it might bite her. Brooke didn't take the envelope. She just stared at it, her hands frozen in her lap. Take it, Leonard said gently. She wanted you to read it. Slowly, like she was reaching into a fire, Brooke took the letter. Her fingers trembled as she opened the envelope. She unfolded the paper inside. I watched her eyes move across the page. I watched her face change. The anger melted away. The shock faded. Something else took its place. Something I hadn't seen on my daughter's face in a very long time. Pain. Real pain. A tear slipped down her cheek. Then another. She pressed her hand to her mouth and made a sound like a wounded animal. Anthony grabbed for the letter. Let me see that. Brooke pulled it away from him. Don't touch it. Brooke, we need to figure out our next move here. We need to... I said don't touch it. She screamed those words. Actually screamed them. Anthony stepped back like she'd slapped him. The room went quiet again. Brooke read the letter twice. 3 times. Then she set it down on the table and looked at me. Did you know? She asked. Her voice was barely a whisper. Did you know what she wrote? I shook my head. She never told me. Do you want to know? I thought about it. Part of me was curious. But another part of me felt like that letter was between Catherine and Brooke. A mother's final words to her daughter. Only if you want to share it, I said. Brooke looked down at the letter again. She took a shaky breath. She said she loves me. She said she always loved me. But she said love isn't the same as approval. She said she watched me become someone cruel, someone selfish, someone who treated the kindest man she ever knew like he was worthless. Brooke's voice cracked on that last word. She said you were the reason she succeeded. Not because of money or business advice. Because you believed in her. You supported her. You sacrificed everything so she could chase her dreams. And she said, I never once thanked you for any of it. I felt my eyes sting. I blinked hard. She said these conditions aren't a punishment. They're a second chance. She said she should have done this years ago. Should have cut me off and made me earn my way. But she was weak. She loved me too much. And now it was too late for her to teach me herself. Brooke wiped her face with the back of her hand. She said she hopes I take this chance. She said she hopes I become the woman I was supposed to be. And she said if I ever want to understand what real love looks like, I should look at my father. She stopped reading. The room was completely still. Anthony broke the silence. This is ridiculous, he said. Brooke, we're not going to let them manipulate us like this. We'll find another lawyer. We'll fight this thing. $2,000 a month? That's an insult. That's... Anthony. Brooke's voice was flat. Stop talking. Brooke, listen to me. I said stop. She looked at him. Really looked at him. Like she was seeing him clearly for the first time. You don't care about me, she said. You never did. You married me for the money. And now that it's gone, you're already trying to figure out how to get it back. Anthony's face twisted. That's not fair. I've stood by you through... Through what? What have you stood by me through? My mother was dying for 18 months. You visited her twice. You spent more time on golf courses than you did at the hospital. She shook her head. We're done, Anthony. I want you out of the house by the end of the week. Anthony looked at her like she'd lost her mind. Then he looked at me, like this was somehow my fault. Then he stormed out of the room, slamming the door behind him. The sound echoed off the walls. Brooke sat there for a long moment, staring at the table. Then she looked at me. I don't know how to do this, she said. I don't know how to get a job. I don't know how to apologize. I don't even know how to talk to you anymore. I leaned forward in my chair. That's okay, I said. We can figure it out together. Why? Her voice broke again. Why would you help me? After everything I did, everything I said. I thought about her question. I thought about all the years of pain, the snubs, the cruelty, the smirk. Then, I thought about something else. A little girl with pigtails sitting on my lap. A crayon drawing of our family with backward letters at the bottom. I love you, Daddy. Because you're my daughter, I said. And I never stopped loving you. Not for 1 second. Brooke broke down then. Really broke down. Sobbing like a child. I got up from my chair. I walked around the table. And for the first time in over a decade, I held my daughter in my arms. She held me back. It was a